We begin with this grim milestone in Gaza. The death toll from Israel's months-long war has now passed 25,000, and the number of dead and injured is rising by the hour. Palestinians have been transporting the injured to hospital on pickup trucks for lack of ambulances. Gaza's health ministry says at least 178 Palestinians have been killed in the last 24 hours. In the south, Palestinian fighters have been confronting the Israeli military near Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. Israeli attacks there have killed at least 14 Palestinians since Saturday. Also, the UN Secretary General has criticized Israel's prime minister for his rejection of a Palestinian state. He was speaking at a meeting of the G77 group of nations in the capital of Uganda, Kampala.
The repeated refusal yesterday to accept the two-state solutions for Israeli and Palestinians is totally unacceptable, as I told the summit of the non-aligned movement. The denial of the right to statehood for the Palestinian people would indefinitely prolong a conflict that has become a major threat to global peace and security, exacerbate polarization, and embolden extremists everywhere.
I want to start with these two summits that have been going on here in Uganda. What has been your reaction to the response that these nations have given to the ongoing war in Gaza and the strong words that have come from these countries in response to the Israeli bombardment of Gaza?
I think that these summits represent the strong commotion of the global south in relation to the levels of death and destruction we are witnessing in Gaza. I have condemned the terror attacks of Hamas, but I have to say that the level of civilian casualties that we are witnessing in Gaza today is unprecedented in relation to any other conflict since I am Secretary General. And so what the Hamas did cannot justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people.
What is the solution if your calls for dialogue with the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, are not being heard? What is the next step to move forward to try and bring an end to this conflict?
I think that there are two aspects. One, we have been asking for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to alleviate the dramatic suffering of the people in Gaza, to allow for humanitarian distribution, to facilitate the release of the hostages that should be unconditional and immediate. But that is not the solution. The solution, in my opinion, is the acceptance by everybody of the right of the Palestinian people to statehood and the acceptance of a two-state solution. And of course, I consider regrettable the fact that the Palestinian Prime Minister has refused that possibility. This is unacceptable. Without a two-state solution, without this, we will have a conflict that never ends. It will boost extremism all over the world. It will polarize situations all over the world. And it is something that, in my opinion, is totally unacceptable.
How do you think African countries can help with this conflict? How effective could they be in trying and putting pressure on regional powers in the Middle East, do you think?
Well, I think the voice of Africa is important, but obviously only the parties can solve the problem. The voice of Africa, the voice of all those that claim for the need of a humanitarian ceasefire, that claim for the two-state solution, are very important, but it's essential that that becomes a reality.
What role do you think the UN can play, other than a diplomatic one, to try and bring an end to this conflict? And the other actors involved now, because it's clearly spreading from Yemen to Lebanon to Syria. What are your concerns and what are you prepared to do to try and prevent it from spreading?
No, we are very active diplomatically, particularly worried with the possibility of an explosion in the West Bank, particularly worried with the risk of escalation of the conflict in the border between Lebanon and Israel. We do not want to see another Gaza in Lebanon. It is clear. So de-escalation is essential. And at the same time, we need to guarantee freedom of navigation in the Red Sea and need to avoid what we are seeing, multiplying incidents in Syria, in Iraq. So it is clear that this conflict is spreading and that this is very dangerous, and the price will be paid by all of us.
How do you think the United States can help? Because they're a very big part of this. And the Houthis have now said that they're fair game in the Red Sea because of their support of Israel. How do you think the United States can be persuaded, at least the Biden administration, to step back a little bit from their full-fledged support of Israel?
I think it's very important. I recognize that the United States have been very active in pushing for a more effective humanitarian aid and stressing the need of a two-state solution. And I think it's time for Israel to listen to the United States and to make these two objectives that the American administration has been stressing, to make them a reality.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, thank you so much for speaking.